Hey, it's Shannon.
And Artis, and today we're going to talk about mistakes to avoid when trying to buy a house.
Stay tuned. And we're back. And like Artis said, we are going to talk about those things that you want to avoid when you're trying to buy a home and some of the common mistakes that people do throughout that process. So one of those first things is failing to check your credit score before finding the house. Oftentimes we have people come to us, they've already found their dream home or decided that they want to buy a house, and now they need to get pre-approved because their realtor is like, hey, reach out, get pre-approved, and they don't qualify. So you definitely want to be making sure that you're checking your credit score in advance of purchasing a home. So if you're in a lease and you're renting and you know that, hey, in the next year or the next 6 months, I'm probably going to buy a house, you want to make sure that you're monitoring your credit and having that check so that you know that you have the qualified credit score that you need in order to purchase a home. Most programs require at least a 580. Some others require higher than that, but kind of that starting point is a 580. I would say you probably want to try to be above like a 640-ish. That way you can get better rates, better options for your mortgage, things like that. So checking your, failing to check your credit score is definitely a landfall for sure.
Yeah, so the other thing is, going out and shopping for a home without getting pre-qualified or pre-approved first. So yeah, you want to make sure you're talking to a reputable lender. I know a couple sitting right here. But yeah, getting pre-qualified before you go out will save you some trouble in the long run, because then if you go out and you say you find a home that you want to buy that's $800,000, but then you only, when you go and actually start looking at getting qualified, you're actually in your budget is only about $500,000. Well, there's going to be a big difference between those types of houses, those level of houses. So then you're not going to like everything that's in your budget. So getting pre-qualified first will help you figure out which house is in your budget and make the process a lot easier for you.
Mm-hmm. Another thing going along with budget is, overextending your budget. We see a lot of people overextend their budget. What you're qualified on paper and what you can actually afford are two totally different things. And sometimes we see people push that to the absolute max, and then they're what we call house poor. Like, they're paying their mortgage, they're paying all of their debts and their bills, but they have $0 left to be able to even live, buy groceries, all of those things. You definitely do not want to overextend your budget. I recommend, especially for first-time home buyers, actually doing a budget. You can Google a free like Excel spreadsheet to do a budget where you plug in how much your income is after taxes, what your bills are, utilities, phone bills, how much do you spend on gas, groceries, all of those things, and it'll kind of tell you what you have left over at the end of the month to spend on housing. But you want to put everything in there and really budget correctly for what you feel comfortable that you can spend, on a monthly basis for your family.
Yeah. Next thing you want to make sure you're doing, that you're not doing, is you want to make sure you're not changing jobs or taking on new debt when you're in the process. So changing jobs, depending on what job you're doing now and what job you're changing into, they can make the process a lot more difficult for not only you to provide more documentation to the lender, but also for us lenders. So make sure that you're not changing jobs, because you could end up taking that job that it's a dream job that that's the best job ever, but now you don't qualify because it's a different pay scale, pay structure, things of that nature. Same thing with the new debt. You want to make sure that that new debt is not that you're not taking any new debt, because that could affect your credit score. It could affect your debt ratio, and all that can overall affect your qualification. So yeah, again, don't take on any new debt. Don't change jobs.
Right. So important. Another common mistake that we see people do is not checking into all the different mortgage options, right? So I can't tell you how many times I have a veteran that comes to me and I ask them, that maybe they've owned like 4 or 5 houses before, and they've never used their VA benefits. And I ask them, well, why? And they're like, oh, well, the lender said that this other program was better, or conventional was better, or whatever. Typically, that happens when somebody is either uncomfortable with a program or product, or don't know a lot about it, so they might guide them into a different type of loan that might be easier for them to do, but it's not necessarily the best option for that borrower. There's so many different loan programs out there, and there's just a lot of I hear a lot of first-time home buyers say, oh, my parents said I have to do a conventional loan, I shouldn't do FHA, or I have to put 20% down, or I have to do this. Every single person's situation is totally different. And I know Artis does the same thing. I like to look at all of the options for a client and see which one is going to best fit their needs, suit their needs, whether it's payment or down payment or, cash to close. All of those things come into play. And sometimes that FHA loan is way better than the conventional for certain borrowers. It might give them a lower payment, lower PMI, lower down payment. There's just a whole bunch of things that go into play. So really failing to research all of those programs or ask the right questions about what products should, that you should do or look into, failing to do that could be a big mistake, because you could be put into the wrong type of mortgage for your situation. So just make sure you're asking the right questions and doing the research on what loan you feel is best for you.
Yeah. The other thing you want to make sure you're doing, is you want to make sure that you're providing all the necessary documentation. So don't not provide the documentation.
Yes.
So make sure you're providing the documentation, all the necessary documentation, and also letting your loan officer know everything that's going on with you in your financial situation. Because think of us as your lawyer when it comes to trying to buy a home, and we're trying to convince the underwriter, the judge, to let you buy the home, right? So everything that you tell us, we're taking that information and we're only letting the judge, the underwriter, know what we have to and what they need to know. But if you don't tell us everything, then if something comes up later, then it's that much more difficult to get you qualified. It could have been something that we could have, gotten a piece of paper up front, to go ahead and handle whatever situation that was. But now, since we found out about it at the nth hour, at the very last hour, now you're having to jump through hoops in order to get that situation rectified. So if you let us know everything up front, then we're able to go ahead and navigate all the little landmines that may come up later.
Mm-hmm. And like Artis said with that, we take all of that information and create the picture and the story that we want to tell on your behalf. And so we have to have all of that information in order to do that correctly. One of the other things that we see that are mistakes, or that once you go under contract, sometimes people don't lock in their interest rate. Okay, now there are times where you don't want to lock in your interest rate, especially if you're doing new construction and you're not closing for way out. But we see a lot of times that clients will get estimates from 123 lender online bank, and they tell them that their rate is something fabulous that nobody else can beat, but they don't lock it in. And then maybe 5-10 days before closing, all of a sudden they're ready to lock that rate in. But guess what? Now that rate's not available, because it probably wasn't to begin with. And they tell them, oh, you're going to have to pay thousands of dollars to get that same rate that we roped you in with in the beginning. You want to make sure, if you are getting a good quote and you're closing and you're under contract, you're within 30 days of close or what have you, that you're pressing to lock in that interest rate, or at least discussing locking in your interest rate with your loan officer, so that you guys can make a decision on whether or not that's something that you want to do at that time. But don't just take an estimate when you're under contract and assume that that's the rate you're going to get until it's locked. Mm-hmm. Locking.
Yep. And the last thing is rushing the process. So, things take time, right? So trying to rush through the process and trying to trying to hurry to get something done is not necessarily always the best policy. Slowing down, making sure, in the military we have this term of the saying that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If sometimes taking your time, slowing down, making sure that everything is correct, everything is going as planned, is the best way to make sure that you're going through and having a smooth process. That'll make a better and more enjoyable process for you as the buyer. So don't rush the process. Sometimes things take time, and if those things take time, there's a reason.
Mm-hmm. So kind of in short, the things that you do want to do, right, are, hey, make sure that you're monitoring and checking your credit score a ways out from the time that you want to purchase a home, so that you know that you're going to be ready when it's time. Making sure you're getting pre-approved before you go find that beautiful house, right, so that you know what budget that you're shopping in. Making sure that you are, what else was it? Providing all the documentation that we need, telling us that full story, that full picture, making sure you're checking all of the different mortgage options that's right for you, and kind of slowing down and not rushing the process. So those are, kind of the main things that you want to be focusing on when you're looking to purchase a home.
Yep. And if you have any questions about what to do or what not to do, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us by phone at 254-295-0905. You reach out to us on our website, which we have now rebranded a little bit. You can reach out to us on our new website at the old one still works too, but our new website is www.the18homeloans.com, or on our email, again rebranded, the18homeloans at fairwaymc.com. So please reach out to us, and we will talk to y'all again soon.
Bye.
Bye.